A fierce warrior, a grieving family, and a forbidden connection. But what happens when destiny forces their worlds together? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from, and why you're following this. The scorching Texas sun beat down on the windswept plains of West Texas, 1872. Chief Running Elk of the Comanche tribe stood tall on a ridge overlooking what was once the undisputed domain of his people. His weathered face, lined with the stories of countless battles, betrayed no emotion as he watched the steady encroachment of white settlers in the distance. "Father," called a voice behind him. Turning, he saw his eldest daughter, Morning Star, approaching with purposeful strides. At 18, she carried herself with the same dignity and fierce pride that had made the Comanche the most feared warriors of the plains. "The hunting party has returned. They found tracks of buffalo heading north," she reported, her dark eyes scanning the horizon with him. Running Elk nodded. "Soon we must follow them. The winter will be harsh, and our people need food." What neither spoke aloud was the growing difficulty of maintaining their way of life. The buffalo herds were dwindling, pushed away by the railroad and the white man's insatiable hunger for land. "And what of my sisters?" Morning Star asked, her voice softer now. Running Elk's jaw tightened. His twin daughters, Wildflower and Prairie Rose, had just turned 5 winters. They were the joy of the tribe, born after the death of his beloved wife. They are playing near the stream with the other children. Gray Wolf watches them. In the camp below, Wildflower and Prairie Rose giggled as they chased butterflies near the clear stream that provided life to their small band. Gray Wolf, an elder warrior past his fighting days, dozed nearby under the shade of a cottonwood tree. None noticed the dust cloud on the horizon until it was too late. Captain James Miller led the Texas Rangers toward the Comanche camp with grim determination. Orders from Austin had been clear the territory for the advancing railroad. Intelligence suggested this was one of the last bands refusing to relocate to the reservation. "Remember, men, we want this done clean," he instructed his 12 Rangers. "Any resistance, you know what to do." Lieutenant Thomas Cooper rode slightly behind his captain, his heart heavy. At 30, he'd seen enough bloodshed in the war between the states to last several lifetimes. Now, 5 years after joining the Rangers hoping to bring justice to the frontier, he found himself an instrument of a policy he privately questioned. "Captain," he ventured, "there are reports of women and children in this camp." Miller didn't look back. "Indians are Indians, Cooper. You going soft on me?" Before Cooper could respond, shots rang out from the direction of the camp. Someone had spotted them. The captain spurred his horse forward, and the others followed, Cooper reluctantly among them. The raid descended into chaos quickly. Running Elk and his warriors mounted a fierce defense, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Cooper found himself separated from his unit, pursuing a fleeing brave into a small ravine. When he rounded the bend, he came face to face not with a warrior, but with Gray Wolf standing protectively in front of 2 small girls. "Stand aside," Cooper commanded, his rifle raised. Gray Wolf spoke in broken English. "These children, no harm them." Cooper hesitated, his finger trembling on the trigger. In that moment, gunfire erupted from behind him, and Gray Wolf fell, a bullet in his chest. Cooper whirled to see Private Jenkins, the youngest and most eager of their company. "Got him!" Jenkins exclaimed triumphantly. Cooper's face darkened with rage. "He was protecting children!" The twin girls screamed, clinging to each other in terror. Cooper dismounted quickly, approaching them with hands outstretched. "It's all right," he said softly, knowing they likely couldn't understand his words, but hoping his tone might calm them. Jenkins snorted. "They're just Indian brats. Captain says to round up any survivors." "Then that's what we'll do," Cooper said firmly, "without any more bloodshed." By dusk, the camp had been subdued. Running Elk and several warriors had escaped into the hills, but many lay dead. Morning Star had been captured along with other women and children. When she saw her sisters in Cooper's care, she lunged toward them, only to be restrained by 2 Rangers. "Those are my sisters," she cried out in perfect English, surprising Cooper. Captain Miller approached, surveying the prisoners. "Good work, men. We'll take them to Fort Davis tomorrow. The Indian agent can sort them out from there." Cooper stood before his captain. Sir, these children are terrified. The older girl here speaks English, perhaps nothing, Lieutenant. Miller cut him off. Secure the prisoners. We make camp here tonight and move at first light. As Cooper led the twins to join their sister, Morningstar's eyes met his. They held no gratitude, only a burning hatred and a silent promise. This would not be forgotten. That night, as the Rangers slept around their campfires, Cooper took watch near the prisoners. Morningstar sat awake, her sister's heads in her lap. "You speak English well," Cooper said quietly. She stared at him coldly. "Missionaries taught me before they decided we were better off dead than unconverted." Cooper winced. "Not all white men think that way." "No?" Her laugh was bitter. "Yet here we are." Cooper looked away, unable to meet her accusatory gaze. "What will happen to you?" he asked. "They will send us to different places, break our spirits, make us forget who we are." She stroked her sleeping sister's hair. "These two are all I have left of my mother. She died bringing them into this world." Something in Cooper shifted. The weight of what he was participating in pressed down on his conscience like a physical burden. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. She hesitated, then answered, "Morningstar. My sisters are Wildflower and Prairie Rose." Cooper nodded, an idea forming in his mind, one that could end his career or worse. But looking at the sleeping children and remembering Grey Wolf's final act of protection, he knew he couldn't simply follow orders anymore. Dawn broke with a crimson streak across the eastern sky, painting the landscape in blood-red hues that seemed an omen to Lieutenant Cooper. He had barely slept, his mind wrestling with the decision that had taken root during his conversation with Morningstar. Captain Miller was already barking orders, eager to reach Fort Davis before nightfall. "Cooper, get those Indians moving. No dawdling." Cooper approached the prisoners, who had been given meager rations of hardtack and water. Morningstar stood proudly, despite her bound hands, her sisters clinging to her skirts. "You'll ride with me," Cooper told her quietly, nodding toward his horse. "Your sisters, too." Suspicion flashed across her features. "Why?" "Just do as I say," he muttered, aware of Jenkins watching them from across the camp. Once the company was mounted and moving, Cooper positioned himself at the rear of the procession. Morningstar rode behind him on his horse, the twins secured between them. The column stretched out along the trail, dust rising in their wake. Cooper waited until they rounded a bend in the trail, temporarily obscured from the Rangers ahead by a rocky outcropping. With a swift movement, he reined his horse sharply off the path and into a dense thicket of mesquite. "What are you doing?" Morningstar hissed. "Getting you out of here," Cooper replied, guiding his horse deeper into the brush. "I can't take you all the way back to your people. They'll hunt us down, but I know somewhere you might be safe." Morningstar's voice was taut with disbelief. "Why would you help us?" Cooper's jaw clenched. "Because what we're doing is wrong. Because your sisters deserve a chance." After a pause, he added, "And because I've been following orders I don't believe in for too long." They rode hard through the day, avoiding the main trails. Cooper knew these lands well from his patrols. He also knew the Rangers would come after them once his absence was discovered, and Miller would make an example of him. By late afternoon, they reached a small creek where Cooper allowed them to rest. He freed Morningstar's hands and watched as she tenderly washed her sisters' faces in the cool water. "Where are you taking us?" she finally asked. Cooper knelt by the water's edge. "There's a widow who lives about 20 miles north of here. Sarah Thornton. Her husband was a friend of mine, died in a Kiowa raid 2 years back." He paused, gauging Morningstar's reaction. "But Sarah's different from most settlers. She trades fairly with the tribes that pass through. Even learned some Comanche words. She might shelter you until it's safe." Morningstar's eyes narrowed. "And then what? Live as white people?" Cooper sighed. "I don't have all the answers, but right now staying alive seems like a good start." As they prepared to mount up again, the distant sound of hoofbeats froze them. Cooper drew his rifle. "Stay here," he ordered, creeping to higher ground to look back the way they had come. Through his field glasses, he spotted 3 riders following their trail, Jenkins among them. Cooper cursed under his breath. They'd been discovered sooner than he'd hoped. Returning to Morningstar and the girls, he spoke urgently. 3 Rangers on our trail. We need to split up." Morningstar's face hardened. "No, we stay together." "Listen to me," Cooper insisted. I'll lead them away. You take the horse and head north." He pointed to a distinctive peak in the distance. "See that mountain shaped like an arrowhead? Sarah's homestead is just beyond it in a small valley with cottonwoods. Tell her Thomas sent you." Morningstar hesitated, clearly torn between distrust and necessity. "How do I know this isn't a trap?" Cooper handed her his sidearm. "You don't. But if I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't be giving you this." After a moment, she nodded curtly, accepting the weapon. Cooper helped her mount with the twins, then slapped the horse's flank. "Ride hard and don't stop," he called as they galloped away. Cooper waited until they were out of sight, then deliberately left obvious tracks heading west, away from Sarah's homestead. He moved on foot, making no attempt to hide his trail. When the Rangers appeared on the ridge above the creek, he ensured they spotted him before ducking into a ravine. The pursuit lasted until dusk. Cooper led them on a winding chase through increasingly rough terrain, finally losing them in a maze-like series of box canyons as darkness fell. Exhausted but satisfied they were following him rather than Morningstar, he found shelter in a shallow cave for the night. Meanwhile, Morningstar rode through the gathering darkness, her sisters dozing against her chest. The strange mountain loomed ahead, its silhouette indeed resembling an arrowhead against the starlit sky. She had no reason to trust the white man's directions, yet something in his eyes had spoken of sincerity. The homestead appeared just as Cooper had described, a modest cabin nestled among cottonwoods in a sheltered valley. A thin wisp of smoke rose from the chimney, and a lantern glowed in a window. Morningstar approached cautiously, alert for any sign of deception. The twins stirred awake, whimpering with exhaustion and fear. Before she could decide whether to approach or retreat, the cabin door opened. A woman stepped onto the porch, a shotgun held ready in her hands. The lantern light revealed a face younger than Morningstar had expected, perhaps 30 years old, with chestnut hair pulled back in a simple bun. "Who's there?" the woman called, her voice steady despite the obvious tension in her posture. Morningstar hesitated, then urged the horse forward into the pool of light. "Thomas sent me," she said in English, the unfamiliar name feeling strange on her tongue. The woman, Sarah, presumably, lowered her shotgun slightly, squinting at the unexpected visitors. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight. A young Comanche woman with 2 small children. "Thomas Cooper?" she asked warily. Morningstar nodded. "Rangers attacked our camp. He helped us escape." Sarah's expression shifted, complex emotions playing across her features. After a long moment, she lowered the shotgun completely. "Come inside," she said, her voice softer now. "You look half dead, and those little ones need food and rest." Morningstar dismounted carefully, helping her sisters down. Wildflower and Prairie Rose clung to her, eyes wide with uncertainty as they regarded the white woman and her strange dwelling. "I'm Sarah," the woman said, stepping back to allow them entry. "Sarah Thornton." The cabin's interior was simple but neat. A table and chairs, a stone hearth with a cooking fire, a rocking chair beside it. Shelves lined one wall holding books, jars, and household items. A curtained doorway presumably led to sleeping quarters. "Sit," Sarah instructed, gesturing to the table. "I'll warm some stew." Morningstar remained standing, keeping her sisters close. "Why would you help us?" Sarah paused in her movements, a bowl in hand. "Thomas Cooper is a good man who saved my life once. If he sent you here, he had his reasons." She set the bowl down. "And I've no quarrel with your people despite what happened to my husband. Hate only breeds more hate." As Sarah ladled stew into bowls, Morningstar slowly seated herself, lifting her sisters onto the bench beside her. The simple act of sitting at a white person's table felt strange, forbidden. "Thomas," Sarah began, then hesitated. "Is he in trouble?" Morningstar met her gaze directly. "Yes, he betrayed his people for us." Sarah nodded slowly, her expression grave. "Then we'd best make his sacrifice worth it." 3 days passed in uneasy coexistence at the Thornton homestead. Sarah provided clean clothes for the girls, simple dresses that once belonged to the daughter of a neighbor who had moved east. Morningstar refused to change from her Comanche garments, but did allow Sarah to wash them. The twins, adaptable as all children, gradually warmed to Sarah, especially when she showed them her small collection of carved wooden animals. Wildflower particularly took to a little horse figure, carrying it everywhere. Morning Star remained vigilant, sleeping lightly with Cooper's pistol close at hand. During the day, she positioned herself where she could watch the approach to the cabin, scanning constantly for any sign of pursuers. "They won't find you here," Sarah assured her on the fourth morning as she kneaded bread dough. "This valley is off the usual trails. Rangers know these lands," Morning Star replied tersely, "and they will not stop looking for a traitor." Sarah paused in her work, flour dusting her forearms. "You're worried about Thomas." It wasn't a question, but Morning Star felt compelled to respond. "He risked everything. For children he does not know." "That sounds like him," Sarah said softly, resuming her kneading. "Always seeing people as people, not just sides in a war." Morning Star watched her sisters playing quietly in the corner with the wooden animals. "There should be no sides when it comes to children." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Thomas and my husband James were like brothers in the war. After James died, Thomas would check on me whenever his patrols brought him near." She shaped the dough into a loaf. "He never said much, but he made sure I had what I needed to survive out here alone." "You have no family?" Morning Star asked, her curiosity getting the better of her reserve. "No children, if that's what you're asking. My parents are back in Tennessee." Sarah's hand stilled. "I stay because this is where James and I made our home. I can't bear to leave it." Understanding passed between the women, the shared knowledge of what it meant to be bound to a place by memory and love. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of hoofbeats approaching. Morning Star was on her feet instantly, gun drawn, positioning herself between her sisters and the door. Sarah wiped her hands and reached for her shotgun. "Stay back," she whispered, moving to the window. Peering through a gap in the curtains, her posture suddenly relaxed. "It's Thomas!" Morning Star lowered the gun slightly but remained wary as Sarah hurried to open the door. Cooper dismounted wearily from an unfamiliar horse, his clothes dirty and torn, several days of beard shadowing his face. He looked exhausted, but uninjured. "Sarah," he greeted her with obvious relief. His eyes moved past her to Morning Star and the twins. "You made it." Sarah ushered him inside, glancing nervously at the empty landscape beyond. "Are you being followed?" Cooper shook his head, accepting the cup of water she offered. "I led them on a wild chase all the way to the Rio Grande. Lost Jenkins in a ravine. The other two turned back after I stole this horse from a ranch near Fort Davis." He took a long drink. "Miller will have every ranger in the territory looking for me by now." "What happens now?" Morning Star demanded. Cooper met her gaze squarely. "I've been thinking about that. There's a small Comanche band that's made peace with the government, living up near the Red River. The agent there is a decent man, a Quaker who actually believes in treating Indians like people. I think I can get you there." Morning Star's expression hardened. "To a reservation? To live on white man's charity?" "To live," Cooper emphasized. "With others who speak your language, follow your ways. It's not perfect, but it is all that's left," she finished bitterly. Cooper didn't deny it. "Your father might even find you there eventually. Word travels between the bands." Sarah, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "You can't leave right away. Thomas needs rest and the girls need time to build strength for the journey." She looked between them. "Stay at least a week. The Rangers won't look this way first. They'll focus on the border and the known Comanche territories." Cooper nodded gratefully. "A few days then." Those days stretched into a week, then nearly 2. Cooper repaired things around Sarah's homestead that had fallen into disrepair, while Morning Star helped with cooking and tending the small garden. The twins thrived under Sarah's gentle attention, their initial fear giving way to curiosity about this strange new world. In the evenings, they would sit together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the western sky. Sometimes Cooper would tell stories of his travels across the territory, or Sarah would read from one of her precious books. Morning Star shared Comanche legends, translating them into English as her sisters listened wide-eyed. On one such evening, as the twins dozed on a blanket nearby, Cooper revealed more of his past. "I joined the Rangers thinking I could bring justice to the frontier," he said, gazing out at the darkening landscape. "My father was killed by raiders when I was 12. Not Indians, white men pretending to be Indians." Morning Star listened silently as he continued. "I thought wearing the badge meant standing between the innocent and those who would harm them," he said. "Somewhere along the way, I forgot to question whether the orders I followed served that purpose. And now? She asked. What will you do after you take us north? Cooper sighed. I can't go back. Miller would have me arrested or worse. Maybe head to California, start fresh. Sarah, who had been unusually quiet all evening, suddenly spoke. You could stay. Both turned to look at her, surprised by the directness of her suggestion. Here? Cooper asked. Sarah nodded. This land is too much for one person. I've known it for some time. With your help, we could make something of it. Her eyes moved to Morning Star. All of you could stay. The children could grow up safely. Morning Star shook her head firmly. My place is with my people. Of course, Sarah said quickly, her cheeks coloring slightly. I just thought. An awkward silence fell over them, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the soft breathing of the sleeping twins. Later that night, Morning Star found herself unable to sleep, her mind crowded with conflicting thoughts. She stepped outside, seeking clarity in the vast dome of stars overhead. She was surprised to find Cooper already there, sitting on a chopping block with a whittling knife and piece of wood in his hands. Can't sleep? He asked without looking up. Too many thoughts, she admitted, seating herself on the porch step. Cooper nodded, continuing to shape the wood with careful strokes. I know that feeling. They sat in companionable silence for a while before Morning Star spoke again. My father would say the stars are the spirits of our ancestors watching over us. Cooper looked up at the sky. That's a comforting thought. My mother used to say they were holes in the floor of heaven, letting the light shine through. Morning Star considered this. Perhaps they are both. Cooper smiled faintly. Perhaps. Another silence fell between them, less awkward than the one earlier. Sarah is a good woman, Morning Star said finally. She is, Cooper agreed. She deserves better than to be out here alone. Morning Star studied his profile in the starlight. You care for her. Cooper's hand stilled. I respect her greatly. That is not what I asked. He sighed, setting down his whittling. It doesn't matter what I feel. I'm a wanted man now. I can't bring that trouble to her door. Morning Star nodded, understanding the complexity of his position. Where one path ends, another begins. My father taught me this. Wise man, your father, Cooper said. Yes, she agreed quietly. And I miss him. In the stillness of the night, with only the stars as witnesses, something shifted between them. Not romance, but a deeper understanding born of shared struggle and difficult choices. Neither noticed Sarah watching from the shadow of the doorway. Her own heart conflicted as she observed their quiet conversation. The sound of galloping horses shattered the pre-dawn quiet 2 weeks after their arrival at the homestead. Cooper was on his feet instantly, grabbing his rifle from beside the pallet where he slept near the hearth. Rangers? He hissed, peering through the window. At least 6 of them. Sarah emerged from her bedroom, hastily tying a robe around her nightdress. How did they find us? No time, Cooper urged, already moving toward Morning Star and the twins. Take the girls and hide in the root cellar. Sarah, you need to act normal. Morning Star scooped up her sleepy sisters. What about you? I'll slip out the back. Draw them away if I can. Sarah shook her head firmly. No, there are too many. She took a deep breath, resolution settling over her features. I have a better idea. Within minutes, Cooper found himself reluctantly descending into the earthen root cellar, beneath a trap door in the cabin floor. Morning Star and the twins already huddled among barrels of preserved food and seed potatoes. This is wrong, he protested. I should be the one facing them. And you will if my plan fails, Sarah replied calmly, checking that her hair was properly arranged in its simple bun. But they have no reason to suspect me of harboring fugitives. Let me handle this. Before he could argue further, she closed the trapdoor and dragged a small rug over it. Through gaps in the floorboards above, they could see Sarah moving about the cabin, lighting a lamp and straightening her appearance. When the pounding came at the door, she waited a moment before answering as any cautious frontier woman would. Who's there? They heard her call. Texas Rangers, ma'am, came the reply. Sorry to disturb you at this hour. Sarah opened the door to reveal Captain Miller himself, flanked by 5 Rangers. Through the cracks, Cooper could see their dust-covered uniforms and weary horses. They'd been riding hard. Mrs. Thornton, Miller said, removing his hat. I don't know if you remember me. Captain James Miller, I knew your husband. I remember, Sarah said coolly. "What brings you here at this ungodly hour, Captain?" Miller cleared his throat. "We're tracking fugitives, ma'am. Deserter from my company, Lieutenant Cooper, and 3 Comanche females he helped escape custody." Sarah's laugh sounded genuinely surprised. "Thomas Cooper? The ranger who checks on me sometimes? You must be mistaken, Captain." Miller's expression hardened. "No mistake, ma'am. He betrayed his oath and his fellow rangers. He's likely armed and dangerous." "Well, I haven't seen him in months," Sarah stated firmly. "And I certainly haven't seen any Indians." Cooper tensed as Miller studied Sarah's face, clearly suspicious. After a long moment, the captain gestured to his men. "We'll need to search the premises, ma'am. Standard procedure." Sarah crossed her arms. "I don't recall that being standard procedure, Captain. Do you have some legal authority to search a widow's home without cause?" Miller stepped closer. "Mrs. Thornton, these fugitives are dangerous. Cooper has already killed one of my men. I'd hate to think you might be harboring him out of some misguided loyalty." In the root cellar, Cooper stiffened at the lie. Morningstar placed a restraining hand on his arm, her eyes warning him to remain silent. Above, Sarah's voice remained steady. "I'm sorry about your man, Captain, but as I said, I haven't seen Lieutenant Cooper or anyone else. Now it's barely dawn, and I'd appreciate it if you'd continue your search elsewhere." Miller's boots creaked on the floorboards directly above them. "Search the place," he ordered his men. "Thoroughly." Tense minutes passed as rangers moved through the cabin, opening cupboards and peering behind furniture. One set of boots paused right above the hidden trapdoor, and Cooper raised his rifle, ready for discovery. But then Sarah's voice called out, "Would you gentlemen care for coffee before you continue your journey? You look like you've been riding all night." The boots moved away as the ranger responded to her offer. Cooper exhaled silently. The search concluded without the root cellar being discovered, and soon they heard the rangers gathering near the door again. "Nothing, sir," reported one of the men. Miller wasn't ready to give up. "Mrs. Thornton, if Cooper contacts you, it would be your duty to report it immediately. Harboring a fugitive is a serious offense." "I'm well aware of my duties, Captain," Sarah replied, her voice cooler than before. "And I'm aware of yours, which I don't believe includes terrorizing a law-abiding woman in her own home before sunrise." Miller's voice hardened. "We'll be watching this area, ma'am. Cooper has friends hereabouts, and fugitives tend to seek familiar ground." "Then I suggest you watch from a distance, Captain," Sarah said firmly. "Good day to you." The sound of the door closing was followed by boots on the porch steps and eventually horses moving away. Still, they waited in the darkness of the root cellar, hardly daring to breathe, until Sarah's face appeared as she lifted the trapdoor. "They're gone," she whispered. "But they've left a man watching from the ridge. I saw him through the spyglass." Cooper emerged first, helping Morningstar and the twins up after him. "You were magnificent," he told Sarah, genuine admiration in his voice. She shook her head. "They'll be back with more men and probably a proper search warrant next time. Miller isn't one to give up easily." "Then we leave tonight," Cooper decided, under cover of darkness. Morningstar nodded in agreement, gathering her sisters close. "Which way?" They spent the day in tense preparation, careful to maintain normal routines that wouldn't alert the watching ranger. Sarah baked bread and hung laundry. Cooper chopped wood, staying close to the cabin and out of sight of the ridge. Morningstar kept the twins inside, packing what few possessions they had accumulated. As dusk approached, Sarah prepared a special meal, the last they would share together. The mood was somber, despite her attempts to maintain cheerful conversation for the twins' sake. After the girls were asleep, the adults gathered around the table to finalize their plan. "I'll create a distraction at midnight," Sarah explained. "The woodpile by the barn, if I set it ablaze, it should draw the attention of whoever's watching." Cooper shook his head. "Too dangerous. They might suspect you helped us." "Let them suspect," Sarah said firmly. "They can't prove anything." Morningstar, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. "I have been thinking about what you said before." Her eyes moved between Cooper and Sarah. "About staying." Cooper's brow furrowed. "You said your place was with your people." "It is," Morningstar acknowledged, "but my sisters—" She glanced toward the sleeping twins. "They are so young. The journey will be dangerous and the reservation life harsh. Here they have found safety, comfort." Her voice faltered slightly. They call for Sarah when they wake now, not for me. Sarah reached across the table to touch Morningstar's hand. They love you. You're their sister. Yes, Morningstar agreed. And because I love them, I must consider what is best for them. She straightened her shoulders. I will continue north, find our father if he lives, tell him where his youngest daughters are safe. Then perhaps I will return. Cooper and Sarah exchanged surprised glances. You would leave them here? Cooper asked carefully. Morningstar's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Only if Sarah is willing. Only if you, Cooper, stay to protect them all. Silence fell over the table as the weight of her proposal settled upon them. It was Sarah who finally broke it. Yes, she said simply. They would be loved here, as would you be, when you return. Cooper looked between the two women, understanding the sacrifice Morningstar was contemplating and the responsibility Sarah was accepting. I'll stay, he said quietly, for as long as it takes. At midnight, their plan unfolded. Instead of the burning woodpile, they used a simpler distraction. Cooper's horse, loaded with supplies, was set loose from the corral, creating enough noise to draw the watching ranger away from his post to investigate. In that moment, Morningstar slipped away on Sarah's mare, following a barely visible trail that would lead her north, away from ranger patrols. The parting was brief but wrenching. The twins had not been told of their sister's departure, for fear their distress would be heard. I will return, Morningstar whispered to Cooper as she mounted. Tell them stories of our people. Do not let them forget. I promise, he replied solemnly. Godspeed. Sarah pressed a small bundle into Morningstar's hands. My mother's compass. It always points north. With a final nod, Morningstar vanished into the darkness, carrying with her the hope of reuniting her divided family. 2 years passed. The homestead flourished under Cooper and Sarah's joint care. They married quietly, with only the twins and a traveling preacher as witnesses. Wildflower and Prairie Rose grew strong and happy, learning both Sarah's ways and the Comanche traditions Cooper faithfully taught them from Morningstar's stories. Rangers came twice more searching for Cooper, but without success. Captain Miller was eventually reassigned to Austin, his obsession with capturing the traitor Cooper becoming an embarrassment to the force. Then on a warm autumn evening, as the family sat on the porch watching the sunset, Prairie Rose suddenly pointed to the distant ridge. Rider coming, she announced, her sharp eyes catching what the adults had missed. Cooper reached for his rifle out of habit, but something in the rider's silhouette made him pause. The horse moved with the distinctive gait of a Comanche-trained mount, and the rider sat tall and proud. Morning Star, Sarah whispered, rising to her feet. The twins, now 7 years old, looked confused, the memories of their sister having faded to vague impressions. But as the rider drew closer, their eyes widened with a recognition that transcended time and separation. Morningstar dismounted before the horse had fully stopped, her eyes drinking in the sight of her sisters, taller and stronger than she had left them, but unmistakably the same. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Wildflower stepped forward tentatively. Sister? She asked in the Comanche tongue that Cooper had taught them to remember. Morningstar nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, little one, I have returned. As the sisters reunited in a tangle of embraces and tears, Cooper moved to stand beside his wife, their hands finding each other's in a gesture that had become natural over the passing seasons. Our family is complete now, Sarah said softly. Cooper watched as Morningstar presented her sisters with gifts, beautifully beaded moccasins and small pouches filled with sacred objects from their heritage. The love between them had survived absence and distance, just as the love that had grown in their unusual household had flourished despite adversity. Yes, he agreed, his heart full. Complete. In the dying light of day, as the first stars appeared in the eastern sky, the reunited family gathered around the table Sarah had set for supper. Their paths had been marked by loss and separation, by difficult choices and sacrifices. But here, in this moment, they had found something rare and precious, a family forged not by blood alone but by courage, compassion, and the enduring power of love.